How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, November 15th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Paulo Dybala. The elite attacker for Juventus from Argentina turns 28 today, and my intention with this episode is, of course, to shine some light on what Paulo Dybala has done on his stats, looking at his accolades, his achievements, from where he started in Argentina to make it all the way to Italy, and now he's one of the most celebrated soccer players in Italy and even in Europe for his amazing play. If you haven't heard of him, he's about 5'10". He is left-footed. I mean, he's one of those players where it's like he has one leg that's just a sharp shoot, or that's just super accurate. Many people are fearful of his left leg, and of course he can dribble, he can pass, he's very smart and intelligent and knows what he's doing, but of course many people see him as one of those soccer players that's more of an artist with the ball at his feet. He's very good, and he's been a very consistent show of force for Juventus, as Juventus has continued to be one of the more dominant teams in Italy over the past decade, while with Paulo Dybala at the helm. So, of course, going back and taking a look, nicknamed La Joya, he originally started playing for Instituto de Cordoba, playing in Argentina. He would play at Instituto for one season, and in the solo season he played, he would be first the youngest player to play a full season. He would finish with 17 goals on the year as a 17-year-old. He would go on to score with 2 hat tricks in the season, and he also scored in 6 consecutive games to break a record in the Argentinian league before he finally was signed by Palermo, a team that is in Italy. And once he made his start in Italy, I think that's when they started recording his stats in Europe. And his age 18 season would be in 2012-2013. And in that season itself, he would go on to start 11 of the 17 games for a Palermo team that would finish 18th in the Serie A, get relegated to Serie B. But in those 3 games that he played, Dybala was able to add 3 goals for himself. Wasn't able to do much in the Coppa Italia. But of course, what more can you really expect from Palermo? No offense to Palermo. Following his first season there, he would come back for what would be his second season in Italy. In his age 19 season in 2013-2014. He would go on to start 26 of the 28 matches he played in the Serie B Palermo season, where he finished with 5 goals and 5 assists to help Palermo finish at the top of Serie B and then jump right back up to Serie A. So in the loan season he was down there, he had 5 goals and 5 assists, and he was contributing to them getting right back up. Once they made it right back up to Serie A in Paulo Dybala's third and final season in Palermo, he would start all 34 of the matches that he played in a season in which Palermo would finish 11th in the Serie A. They made it to the 3rd round of the Coppa Italia, but this was the lone season where Paulo Dybala would lead the team in scoring. In Serie A, he finished with 13 goals and 10 assists. This would be the only season in Serie A in which he's finished with double-digit assists. And this would go down as the first time in Serie A he would finish with a double-digit amount of goals in a regular season. And then once he was able to do that, teams were actually able to take him seriously. He scored 10 goals in the very first half of the season, but he was and after finishing as one of the top assist providers in the league as well, he would eventually get signed in the summer window of 2015, and he would get signed to Juventus, and also at the same time he would get called up to play for the Argentinian team in September, even though it was pretty tough to really have him play in a lot of the same tournaments as Messi. However, This would transition into his very first season at Juve, which would be his age 21 season in which he turned 22. In his very first season at Juventus in 2015-16, he would go on to start 29 of the 34 matchups he played, in a season in which Juventus would go on to win the Serie A for what at that point would be the 5th year in a row, and for their 32nd time. They would also, or looking at how he fared in the Serie A in his first season at Juve, he finished with 19 goals and 9 assists. That is the most assists that he was able to put together in a season at Juve, and it is the second most goals he's ever scored at Juventus as well. Not to mention that that Juventus was also able to pick up the Supercoppa. They're the Supercoppa Italia, or Supercoppa Italiana, as in the one game he played. He was able to score there. In the Coppa Italia, he played 2 goals and he played 4 games and was able to add 2 goals in a campaign which saw Juventus win the Serie A for the 2nd year in a row. This would be the 11th time that Juventus had won the Coppa Italia. And on their quest for the Champions League, however, they would, looking at how Juve fared, they would end up losing, or in the 2015-16 season, they would end up losing in the round of 16, as they would end up falling very short in this round to they fell short to Bayern Munich 6-4 on aggregates. That's the only reason that they were not able to win Champions League this year. But of course, that's more trophies that, of course, were awarded to Paulo Dybala for what was an amazing season that he was able to help the team put together. In that Champions League season, he added 1 goal in the 7 games that he played. Following the 2015-16 season, Paulo Dybala would return to Juventus for his 2nd season there, and his 4th season in the Serie A. In his age 22 season, he would start 26 of the 31 games that he would play, in a season in which Juventus would go on to win the Serie A for the 6th consecutive season, and they would go on to also win the Coppa Italia for the 3rd year in a row. This was the season where they finished as the runners-up in the Supercoppa Italia, and they would finish as runners-up in the Champions League, as they ended up losing to Real Madrid and the Galacticos. But in the season itself, in the Serie A season, Paulo Dybala added 11 goals and 7 assists to this Serie A campaign. This will be the 3rd consecutive Serie A season in which he's finished with double-digit goals, and his 2nd consecutive season doing so at Juventus. He would also add 4 goals in the Champions League campaign, which saw them go 11 games. That is the closest that Dybala has ever gotten to a Champions League win. However, in the Coppa Italia, he was also able to add 4 goals and an assist in the 5 matches, as he was able to help Juve pick up that trophy, as well as in the Coppa Italia. That was the only time in Paulo Dybala's career he was able to lead an entire tournament in scoring. That's the only golden boot he was able to register. Following his 2nd season in Juve, which was a title one, he would return for his 3rd season, his age 23 season, in 2017-2018. And in that season, he would start 26 of the 33 games he played, in a season where Juve would win the Serie A for the 7th year in a row. They would also win the Coppa Italia for the 2nd year in a row. Looking at how he fared first in the Serie A, he was able to add 22 goals and 3 assists. This is the only time that Paulo Dybala was ever able to register more than 20 goals in a season, and to this day, it is the most goals he's ever put together in a Serie A season, as 3 of his goals were penalty kick goals. But regardless, he was also able to add 1 goal and an assist in the Coppa Italia, as Italy was able to take that yet again. They would finish runners-up in the Supercoppa Italia, and in that matchup, Paulo Dybala would end up adding 2 goals, as this year they would end up falling short to Lazio, as Ciro Immobile in that squad would end up having a better performance. Not to mention that they would find themselves losing in the quarterfinals of Champions League, as they ended up losing in this round to Real Madrid, who ended up going all the way to the final and beating Liverpool. But in Champions League, he was able to add a goal in those 8 matches. And following that 2017-18 season, which still saw him pick up a couple more trophies for Juventus, he would get called to play for Argentina at the World Cup, and he would only play 1 game, as, of course, he would have to share a very packed front attack with Sergio Aguero, Leo Messi, Angel Di Maria, and others. In group stage, Argentina would end up drawing with Iceland, losing to Croatia, and then beating Nigeria. And before they lost in the round of 16 to France, they lost that one 3-4, and that would end Dybala's only appearance at the World Cup. Following that 2018 summer, Paulo Dybala would return to Juventus for his 4th season there and his 6th season in the Serie A. And in his 6th season, and in his 7th year in Italy. In his age 24 season, he would go on to start 24 of the 30 games he would play in a season where Juve would win yet another title. This would go on to be their 8th title in a row and their 35th total Serie A championship. In that Serie A season, Paulo Dybala would finish with 5 goals and 4 assists to follow up that season, as that was also the very season that Cristiano Ronaldo would arrive at Juventus, just to give a sense of what that was. In the Coppa Italia, they would end up losing in the quarterfinals, as that ended their 4-year title run in that particular for that particular tournament. However, they would go on to win the Supercoppa d'Italia, as they ended up beating Milan that year. The only goal in this 1-0 matchup coming from Cristiano Ronaldo, and then they would end up losing in the quarterfinals of the Champions League this year, as they ended up losing to Ajax, who ended up losing to Tottenham, who ended up losing to Liverpool in Champions League that year, just to give a sense of what Juve was. But they still were winning Champions League titles this season, and looking at how Dybala fared this year, he was able to add 5 goals in the Champions League run. And following that season for Juve, which saw him pick up a couple more trophies or at least for the Italian club, he would go on to compete with Argentina at the Copa America in 2019. He would go on to add a goal and an assist as he played 4 matchups, and Argentina would end up finding themselves in 3rd place in the entire tournament of course, for that year, as they ended up beating Chile in the actual final of the tournament. They ended up losing to Brazil in the semifinals 2-0. Just to give a sense of how they got there. Following that 2019 exit, Paulo Dybala would return to Juventus for his 5th season. And in 2019-2020, a season that was impacted by COVID, in the sense that the end of the season was delayed by about 3 months because, of course, quarantining and all the necessary stuff, especially because Italy was hit the hardest. But in the 2019-2020 season, in his age 25-26 season, Paulo Dybala would start 25 of the 33 matchups he would play for a Juve season that would go on to win the Serie A title for the 9th year in a row. And of course, they have not won the Serie A title since 2020, but of course, it's 2021, so that's not that long of a time. But in 2019-2020, the Serie A title was the only title they were able to pick up. That is the only time that the only season Dybala's been in Italy, or been in Juventus, in which he was only able to pick up 1 trophy. But of course, it's the trophy that mattered. In the Serie A, he finished with 11 goals and 6 assists, as this would be the 5th Serie A season he's had in which he was able to finish with double-digit goals. And this would also be the 5th Serie A, or the 4th Serie A, the 5th Italian season in which he's posted at least 5 assists in a season as an attacker. Not to mention that also in the Coppa Italia, he was able to add 2 goals and an assist, as Juve would find themselves runners up, eventually losing at the very end to Napoli on penalties. Paulo Dybala missed his penalty, by the way. They would find themselves runners-up in the Supercoppa Italia to Lazio yet again, and they would find themselves losing in the round of 16 in Champions League, as they would find themselves losing to Olympique Lyonnais, who ended up going all the way to the semifinals before getting knocked out by Bayern Munich. But following that 2019-2020 season, this would lead to the most recent season that he's finished in his age 26 season. He would go on to start 14 of the 20 games that he would play for a Juve team that would finish 4th in Serie A, and of course effectively ending their 9-season run as Italian champs. This was Cristiano Ronaldo's last season there. He finished his trifecta of leading the team in scoring. In Serie A, Dybala would add 4 goals and about 3 assists, as he was sidelined due to injury for a bit. But in the games that he played, like I said, 4 goals, 3 assists. In the other competitions, he added a goal or he was able to add a goal in his 5 Champions League appearances, and he only appeared in 1 Coppa Italia match. And even though Juventus finished 4th in Serie A, they would go on to win the Coppa Italia, as they would go on to win in the final versus Atalanta 2-1. They would also go on to win the Supercoppa Italia over Napoli, as Ronaldo scored a goal in that matchup. And then they would end up losing in the round of 16 in the 2021 Champions League season, as they found themselves on the losing end versus Porto, as they ended up losing on aggregates to Porto before Porto lost to Chelsea, and Chelsea went on to win Champions League, and that's effectively how the 2021 season ended. And even coming back in this 2021-22 season without Ronaldo, it's been a tough season for Juventus, as they are still fighting for one of the top spots, but not for Dybala, as Dybala has added a few goals for himself this season. Juventus is still incredibly active in their other tournaments as well, so it'll be very impressive to see what he does there. But as we look and see where Paulo Dybala is at this point in his life, as he turns 28, we look back and see, not even look back, we look to where, I guess we do look back and see that this is a player that is very capable of taking over the Serie A when he has the confidence, when he's perfectly healthy, and when he has everything, when he has every Italian resource at his disposal that he could use in the Serie A. He's very at home. He's very comfortable with this team. And if you ever watch him, I would recommend doing so. He's currently the number 10 for Juventus, and he wears number 21 for Argentina. Thanks once again for listening to all 18 minutes of this piece. I want to thank the Pro Football Reference websites, Transfermarkt, Footy Stats, the Wikipedia articles, and all the FIFA sites that I use for all the stats and figures for this episode to put it to piece it all together. I can't do this on my own. And I want to wish Paulo Dybala a happy 28th birthday. I highly recommend watching Dybala play. He's one of the more artistic players to watch. And especially if you're watching Italian soccer, you're going to end up watching Paulo Dybala anyway, because he is playing for one of the most dynamic dynasties that has ever graced Italian football. And he's won 5 of those 9 consecutive titles for Juventus. So he was a majority shareholder in that dynasty. With that said, thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and hopefully watch some more of Paulo Dybala. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are over, I will come back tomorrow, of course, on Tuesday, November 16th for another episode. Until then, thanks for listening. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Peace.